Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you. Whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the widely available and 100% free Extra Sports 1300 app. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the next 3 hours. And because it is Olympic season, I do mean veritable cornucopia. Going to cover a lot of ground over the course of the next 3 hours. I'd love to get your input. 719-247-1313 is both the phone line and the text line for your convenience. You can also find me on social media. Twitter is probably X, the best place to go, at Gingerly Tweets. I don't know that I will ever, without fail, call it X. Just, I don't know. Never going to be able to do it. Anyway, let's start with the Olympics, shall we? And I think it's become more clear after that first game for USA basketball against Serbia. It's become more clear what is holding this team back. You know, I've talked about, Steve Kerr being beholden to Curry, Durant, and LeBron, and there's no way he's going to bring any of them off the bench. I know KD came off the bench, but that was just because he had been out. He'll be in the starting lineup next time they play again. And wishing that Steve Kerr would just throw the best five out there at any given time. Right? And not be so beholden to accomplishments in the past. Well, it's kind of hard to sit here and say that LeBron isn't one of the five best players on this team, because he picked up right where he left off in the last two exhibitions when he rescued Team USA. He was great, only overshadowed by Kevin Durant. So I can't really say that Kevin Durant through one game doesn't deserve to be in the starting five. Steph Curry, it's hit and miss. He goes through a spell where he's knocking down a few shots, and then you don't really hear from him for a while. Those guys really aren't the issue. And I've always put one more name in to this mix, but it's for a different reason. And it's Joel Embiid. Because while Joel Embiid is not an aging superstar like KD, LeBron, Steph, you know why he consistently gets put in the starting five and why Steve Kerr includes him in when he mentions his core, right? It's Steph, LeBron, KD, and Embiid. And then it's who's the other guy. And that's been, sometimes it's been Drew Holiday quite a bit. Because of injury, there's been another spot that's opened up. But Joel Embiid is on this team, and in this start, they wouldn't have gone through the effort of poaching him from France to just sit him on the bench. Okay, that would be, Joel Embiid would never go for that. So I don't have inside information on this, but my read is that if they had to poach him, it's not like Joel Embiid was a high school quarterback and had all the hats in front of him and just decided to pick Team USA. He was signed, sealed, and delivered for France. That's who he was playing for. And the U.S. ripped him away from France. which is why on Saturday or on Sunday, you heard Joel Embiid getting booed mercilessly because he turned his back on France to go to Team USA. And I can't imagine he would have made that move had there not been some caveats or some promises about what his role would be. But it's been this way throughout the friendlies. And now when things actually matter, it appears again. Still, Joel Embiid is no match defensively for Nikola Jokic because no one in the world is. There isn't one single basketball player that can guard Nikola Jokic. And that became abundantly clear, if it wasn't already, by Nikola Jokic constantly putting Joel Embiid in what Chris Marlowe would affectionately refer to as the spin cycle and beat him to the basket nearly every time the two were matched up. And that was the case in the exhibition game against Serbia. But it goes deeper than that. Joel Embiid yesterday, his plus minuses, we talk about Jokic. Team USA was outscored by 8 points when Joel Embiid was on the floor. Not great. They were plus 34 without him. Plus 34. Conversely, Nikola Jokic, when he was on the floor, Serbia scored the same amount of points as Team USA. And when he was off the floor, they looked like the Denver Nuggets without Nikola Jokic. They were outscored 29-3. There's the difference in the game right there. It was those two centers. They were the difference in the game. And we could talk about KD, and he was magnificent. Talk about how great LeBron was, and I will. But the deciding factor was Serbia without Jokic and the U.S. without Embiid. One player being off the floor was catastrophic for his team. The other one off the floor was a benefit. What this says about Joel Embiid is what you've probably said about Joel Embiid in the past. He's not a winning player. What he does, he has to be the guy. He is unable to make his teammates better. Two things that make Joel Embiid. His ability to attack the rim, because no one wants to stand in that guy's way when he's driving to the basket. And when he can be a free throw merchant. It's funny that Nikola Jokic is called the stat patter. When Joel Embiid, on a nightly basis, and you see this in the NBA, is puffing up his numbers because he's flailing and jumping into people. But with Team USA, both of those things are taken away. Right? So he can't drive to the basket because he's not the number one option. He has to stay out of the way to allow LeBron to attack the basket. He's not a gifted passer. And FIBA referees aren't falling for the same crap that NBA officials do. So you add all this up, and you're like, why is he on the team? To say nothing of the fact that Steve Kerr refers to him as a core player, an important player. He's far from that. Joel Embiid is detracting from Team USA. They are worse with him on the floor than without. And given the performances of the aging 3 stars, we need to put that away. I know that Steve Kerr will never bench any of those 3 guys, and I can talk about how there's a better 5 out there than having those 3 on the floor. But they have proven their worth over the span of these friendlies and then into the game against Serbia, that they can still play at a very high level. Joel Embiid cannot. And maybe you could blame his time in Philadelphia, because in Philadelphia, it was all about him all the time, no matter what. But now you're on a team with other guys that are at your level. And you have to fit as a part of the team. And Joel Embiid just does not fit. And now that they're done playing Nikola Jokic, I know France, you would figure at some point the U.S. would have to play. But until then, what is the reason for having Joel Embiid on the floor? Because I thought it had a lot to do with Nikola Jokic. Well, you're done with, and you won, so good. But Embiid couldn't do anything against Jokic. It has to be Bam and Anthony Davis both. And now moving forward, just put Anthony Davis in the lineup. Like, he and Bam Adebayo have been a terrific duo, but you look at the road ahead for Team USA, and even though you would love to see Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo on the floor a lot together, they don't need to. Anthony Davis can handle what is to come for Team USA, and then if they happen to meet France with Wembanyama and Gobert, then we'll revisit this. But I'm just tired. I'm tired of people bending over backwards and bending themselves into a pretzel to try and put Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic on the same level. They're just not. Their impact on winning is very, very different. And in many ways, this is the ultimate team, ultimate display of team basketball, right? It's been part of the reason why the U.S. has had disappointing finishes in the Olympics and in the FIBA World Cup over the years, is that the perception is the U.S. is very star-driven. My turn, your turn. I'm going to get mine. Now you could get yours. And it's not within the flow of the game. It's not team basketball. That's when the U.S. loses. When they don't play the way that the international stage dictates that you play. Joel Embiid doesn't fit it. Joel Embiid is give me the ball on the low block and I'm going to do whatever I want. And if I, have a wild hair, I may give the ball up. How's that worked out for Philadelphia? How's that worked out for Joel Embiid? Joel Embiid is a force, right? Joel Embiid is one of the most talented players in the NBA. I'm not trying to diminish him and say that he's not talented. He is. Okay? But he's only talented. That talent only shines through when he is the star and everyone else is an afterthought. Whereas with Nikola Jokic, I know he's on a lesser team, but still, you see him out there elevating the play of a bunch of dudes you've never heard of, and you still don't retain their names. Bogdan Bogdanovic is the only name on Serbia that you may possibly know. And yet Nikola Jokic is getting this team for large portions of that game to play right there with the U.S. The time when the U.S. broke away was when Nikola Jokic was off the floor. 81-81 was the score when Nikola Jokic was on the floor with a bunch of dudes that have never played in the NBA, and many of them will never. And with a embarrassment of riches. The greatest shooter in the history of basketball in Steph Curry. Another one of the game's elite shooters in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. You have all these shooters. Joel Embiid can't find them. Can't do anything. They're both very talented in their own way. No one should say that they would rather have Joel Embiid than Nikola Jokic, and yet I hear the conversation all the time. There's something to be said for making your teammates better, for elevating your team's play, for being a winning player, not a player that has yet to even appear in a conference finals. That has to be held over him. And everyone is just obsessed with his size and his power and his skill level. But 10 out of 10 times, I would take Nikola Jokic. There is literally nothing that Joel Embiid, except getting to the free throw line, he does do that much better than Nikola Jokic does. There is literally nothing else within Joel Embiid's game that I would take over Nikola Jokic. And on a stage that brings out the best in teams. It's the best players playing together, playing ultimate team basketball. I love international basketball. I want the NBA to adopt everything that FIBA has. It is so much better. You ever notice that? Like the play so far in the Olympics, I watched Canada play. I got thoughts on Jamal Murray a little bit later. U.S., Serbia. I watched Australia. This is great basketball. It is so much better than what we get on a nightly basis in the NBA on the whole. Because it's team basketball. And Joel Embiid can't play it. He can't. Right now, after the exhibitions and the first game against Serbia, there is only one player on Team USA that you look at and go, I don't know if that works. LeBron works. KD worked to a spectacular level. It's Joel Embiid. He's the only guy taking away from Team USA, which is insane because it's supposed to be the best players. He just doesn't fit. His game does not translate. And it's an indictment of him as a player. It just is. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts. There's more layers to that game because I do want to talk about LeBron and KD. I do want to talk about the guy that did not take away from Team USA, but he didn't add anything either. But coming up next, John Elway, finally, all these years later, admits to what many people believe is his biggest mistake as a general manager, although I got to say, might not be that. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. I genuinely hope, even if you believe that this sentiment is only for my own selfish reasons, because I am sick and tired of talking about a largely irrelevant football team. I hope Bo Nix works out. I do. Do I believe it? I think it'll work out enough. It'll whet your appetite as a Broncos fan. But I do think there will inevitably be a day in the maybe not so distant future where you're like, okay, Bo Nix was good. He got us going back in the right direction, but we need a little more dynamism. We need more talent at the quarterback position. I think the ceiling for Bo Nix ultimately is, and he's always brought up as like the poster child for like good, not great, Kirk Cousins. Right? Like that. And maybe it's not Kirk Cousins because he's a high level one of those kind of quarterbacks, but there's many of those quarterbacks. Right? They're not Josh Allen. They're not Patrick Mahomes. They're not Lamar Jackson. But they're fine. And I feel like that's what Bo Nix will ultimately prove to be. They'll be fine. And if they get a lot of other stuff right on this team, some guys develop with Sean Payton's coaching, I think they will move in the right direction. I just don't think it's going to be year one because this roster is pretty devoid of talent. So I genuinely hope, that Bo Nix works out. And if he does, to whatever level, right? Whether he's poor man's Kirk Cousins or he becomes the next Patrick Mahomes, as long as he works to some degree, I believe the Josh Allen conversation in Denver will be over. But until Bo Nix proves to be the right guy, or at least the right now guy, this will continue to be one of the sorest subjects among Broncos fans. Why didn't John Elway take Josh Allen? He was asked by the Big Cat's one of the hosts of Barstool, Part of My Take, and he finally at least admitted to you and the world that he got that wrong.
Did you not get Josh Allen? I feel like he is exactly your type.
I know he is. And believe me, last year I played with him, and I'm wondering how long is it going to take him to realize that I passed on him and took Bradley and Chubb instead?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it took him 2.5 holes to bring it up and I loved him, right?
Yeah.
But it just,
he was your type.
That's the was my type. Yeah. And you're right. That was probably my biggest mistake of my GM days. Was not taking Josh.
Does that do anything for you? That he admitted that was the biggest mistake? I actually don't think it was the biggest mistake. Because passing on what turns out to be a franchise quarterback is difficult. It is tough for fan bases to deal with because you think about what might have been. Taking a quarterback and missing is worse. And John Elway not taking Josh Allen is a perfect example of this. The biggest mistake he made as a general manager was drafting Paxton Lynch. It was. Because Paxton Lynch had some major flaws. that other teams in the NFL were not interested in taking him. So I don't know if the Broncos did their due diligence when it comes to Paxton Lynch. But whether they did or whether they didn't, the fact remains that he was a complete and utter bust. So what does John Elway do in response to it? He goes out and grabs Case Keenum. Right? Forget. He tried to go the route that many teams go, drafting a young quarterback to lead the Denver Broncos into the next era. It didn't work. And so instead of going back to that well and trying again in the draft, he signs Case Keenum, who was coming off of a terrific season, but you knew was pretty limited as a quarterback. There was not a ton of belief that Case Keenum, even though John Elway sat up there after mispronouncing his name and said, we got our guy, which I don't know how many times over the years I've heard that when it comes to the Denver Broncos, and it's always never the case. But it also meant, well, they have a quarterback. So perhaps that was not a priority for them going into that draft. Now, there were many reports, even the day of the draft, that the Broncos really like Sam Darnold. So would it have been any better if the Broncos would have ended up with Sam Darnold instead of Josh Allen? Probably not. Because that's the thing. Josh Allen was never a serious consideration by the Denver Broncos. You know who went to Josh Allen's pro day in Laramie? Not John Elway. So I wonder a little bit how John Elway knew that Josh Allen was his guy, was his kind of guy, when he didn't go and watch him. I don't know if it makes it any better or worse that the Broncos never really seriously considered Josh Allen, or if they seriously considered him and they were trying to really weigh Bradley Chubb, Josh Allen, Bradley Chubb, Josh Allen, and chose Bradley Chubb. I don't know if it's better or worse. You could tell me. But the fact of the matter is, not only is drafting the wrong quarterback more detrimental than just not taking the right one, but because of how terrible Paxton Lynch was, it made John Elway go in a completely different direction. To the point where he was not even seriously considering Josh Allen. And the reason why they wanted Sam Darnold over Allen, probably a little more polished. Could you imagine if John Elway was essentially looking at himself when he was coming into the league? He would hate to draft that guy. He would. Right? Running around, throwing all over the place, airmailing guys. That's what Josh Allen was coming out of Wyoming. Accuracy was a huge thing with him, and the lack thereof. But it's a moot point because he wasn't even really considering him. So it's not like they really did their homework and really drilled down into it. And in the end, John Elway's like, oh, he's just too wild, too inaccurate. Doesn't play a high enough level of college football. Like, they didn't even get that far. He has no choice but to admit it now because it looks like such a glaring mistake. Bradley Chubb is long gone. Like, they don't even have Bradley Chubb to kind of hold up and say, well, at least he's still productive. Yeah, we made a mistake because quarterback was more important, but at least we have this elite pass rusher on our team. So I guess for a guy as prideful as John Elway, it does mean something that he's willing to, raise his hand and say, my bad. I should have taken him. But the reason why and what led to it is the bigger mistake. It was just a cascading effect of other decisions that were made by John Elway towards the end of his tenure that just put the Broncos further away from winning a Super Bowl. John Elway did so much to build them into a Super Bowl team. And he did equally the same amount of work, put in the same amount of work to put them as far away as they possibly could be when it comes to winning a Super Bowl. And that's why his tenure as GM is so complicated. Some people say, you know what? He gave us one. I'm good. And that's fine. It's just a matter of perspective. Right? In the moment, you're like, well, they should be winning more. And yeah, if some other decisions would have been made properly, then maybe the Broncos would have another championship or at least be in contention for one. But as you get a bit of distance, some people will go, well, we had that one. And you always treasure it. And for that, it's a win. But for a lot of other people, be like, man, I love what John Elway did for the Denver Broncos, but he really kind of ran them into the ground. And now, however many years later, 2018 to 2024, 6 years later, they're basically starting from scratch. That's what Sean Payton's doing. He's starting from scratch. 719-247-1313. Does John Elway's admission make you feel any better? Coming up next, more Olympics, as Team USA, when it comes to women's soccer, should just rebrand Team Colorado, because right now the Colorado natives on that team are carrying this team with one notable exception. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on a Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. I would encourage you to watch the show on a daily basis on our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, X, Instagram, or YouTube, by adding at Extra Sports 1300, XTRA Sports 1300. To Broncos camp we go, and I'm already seeing it happen. All the national reporters going on to ESPN and NFL Network and saying, people on the ground are impressed by Bo Nix. There is some PR that goes into this, right? These quarterback competitions. You don't want to just hand Bo Nix the job. Right? You saw Jared Stidham last year. Maybe you like some things. You know that the track record of rookie quarterbacks is not immaculate. So there's some risk in starting a rookie from week one. But it's not just, you can't hand him the job. Right? Part of developing him is pushing him and saying, we're not giving this to you just because you're a first-round pick. There's some of that. But there's also selling it to the masses. That Bo Nix won this job. Bo Nix winning this job is important to the Denver Broncos. And it's a quarterback competition that he can win. I'm not saying that these reports that are going around nationally are not founded in reality. Everything that I have been told and seen from Broncos camp is that Bo Nix is the better quarterback so far. Long way to go, but he's been that. So it's not like they're lying, but it's just they're laying the groundwork because the headline needs to be Bo Nix wins Broncos quarterback job, not that he's given it. I've just taken away the illusion of that because I'm under, makes no difference to me. I'm telling you that Bo Nix is getting that job. And the Broncos will do everything they can to make sure that Bo Nix is ready to go week one. Right? So they're not handing it to him. They're just pouring themselves into him to make sure that he's ready to go. And I think that's a subtle difference between just outright handing it to him. But there are two other quarterbacks on this roster, two other quarterbacks that have been informed that it is maybe just as likely that they will be the starter week one. Here's Jared Stidham saying, despite, actually being the only guy that started a game for the Denver Broncos, he's not worried about, asserting himself and making sure that people know that he's still around.
I don't really get caught up in too much of that. I'm very confident in who I am as a person and a player. And, I've always been one to kind of let my play do the talking and not really worry about opinions of others and that sort of thing.
And then you have Zach Wilson, who brings something different to the table, right? All three of these guys are a little bit different, even though they're all Sean Payton's orphan dogs. Or just orphans. Or even castaways. I don't know. There's got to be a better way to put this, but I get what he was getting at. Jared Stidham is kind of the, no one ever had any high expectations for him, came in as a backup, has been a backup, but has been around longer, more steady, right? There's not the risk associated with Jared Stidham as opposed to Bo Nix or Zach Wilson. What Zach Wilson brings to the table is maybe the best talent of all three. I think unequivocally, actually. I don't know why I'm parsing words. Zach Wilson is the most talented quarterback of the three. Have you seen him throw a football? Of course you have. It's the reason why the Jets drafted him, was because of his ability to throw a football in situations like training camp. Zach Wilson absolutely has more talent than Bo Nix. The question is, did he have the football IQ, the decision-making ability, and did the Jets ruin him? But Zach Wilson, turning a negative into a positive, says that he comes into this training camp with a little bit different perspective and a better perspective, having gone through what he went through in New York.
Yeah, I would say so. Just maybe different perspective than anything, of just, the ups and downs of my first 3 years, just having a perspective, just loving ball, just coming out here and throwing it around and having a good time and doing the best I can.
So you have the cast off, you have kind of the career backup, and then you have your first round pick. And while I could say that Jarrett Stidham's experience, even though it's not a ton of experience, is something he has over Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, I think, has more talent. More raw talent. Maybe that should be the adjective to throw onto that. More raw talent than Bo Nix. But I think Bo Nix kind of takes more talent than Jarrett Stidham has, while potentially being, it's potential because we got to see it, but potentially a better decision maker, less cavalier with the football than Zach Wilson. And if he can blend those two things together, I think that's what wins him this job. And the key to that, Bo Nix is very acutely aware of.
From a standpoint of the playbook and the verbiage and understanding, the operation and the process that goes within calling a play and getting to the line of scrimmage and making sure everybody's ready to make the play work.
That's going to be the key for Bo Nix. He's going to have flashy throws. He's going to have, a good drive or two, even one without flashy throws, but just good ball movement down the field. He's going to show some of that. But I think what he needs to do, what he needs to demonstrate to Sean Payton is just that he understands it. Right? He understands it and he's going to run it. The last guy, we could debate whether he understood it, but he certainly didn't follow it. Right? And that's what Sean Payton wants. Know what the play is called, know why we're calling that play, and if you know why, then there will be more of a reason for you to run it as I call it. So I think the biggest thing for Bo Nix to win this job is actually something that in large part will play out behind the scenes. I do, because you could see some of that out on the field during these preseason games that he understands, but we don't know what play is being called. We don't know if he changes the play unless he's, we don't know what he's doing in the huddle. A lot of Bo Nix's understanding of this offense will take place behind closed doors, so to speak. We won't get to see it. We'll just see, okay, he was 11 for 15 for $150, a couple of touchdowns and a pick. We'll see if he can air it out. We'll see if he's mobile. I don't think that any of that is nearly as important as Bo Nix just understanding the offense, grasping the offense, and running the offense. If he can do that, if he can demonstrate that on the field, but especially in team meetings and stuff, he's going to get this job. Now, from your standpoint, but from Sean Payton's a little bit, right? This is a team that does want to push the ball downfield, does want to get chunk plays, right? Just not at the cost of one big play for every 3 or 4 sacks that Russell Wilson took, right? But they're going to want to get those explosive plays. And we're going to want Bo Nix to push the ball down the field. And I think that's what you want to see. I don't think you want to see Bo Nix in these preseason games dink and dunk. And I feel pretty good about that, knowing that everything I see on social media is about the big throws that Bo Nix makes. Bo Nix discusses the fine line between conservative and aggressive when it comes to his decision making.
It's all about being confident, and sometimes you do take a risk, and sometimes it doesn't work out for you, but those you minimize and you learn from. But at the same time, you don't want to be a gun-shy quarterback. So no matter what, just have great confidence in the plays and the players and go out there and execute it. And if it's not there, then check it down. But it's also about experience, and you see looks that you like, and then you get to come back to. But sometimes it's not a good look. You just check it down and go to the next play.
I think Sean Payton will scheme up some plays where Bo Nix can push the ball down the field. Again, getting back to the theme of the Broncos need Bo Nix to win the job. He'll scheme some things up where Bo Nix can showcase the deep ball. That was one of his criticisms coming out of Oregon, that maybe he's not a deep ball thrower. And Sean Payton schemes up some things to get Bo Nix to move. I think those are the two things from a talent perspective you wonder about with Bo Nix. Is he mobile enough, or is he just going to sit back in the pocket, and can he air it out? And when your best weapon in your passing game is Cortland Sutton, which all he does is make big plays, they're too few and far between. But when Cortland Sutton catches the ball, chances are it's a big play for the Denver Broncos, whether it results in 6 or not. So Sean Payton will do some of that scheming in the preseason for Bo Nix to show that stuff off in order to show that Bo Nix won the job rather than simply being handed it. Now, there is a non-zero chance that Bo Nix is not the starter week 1. It's not where I'm putting my money, but there's always a chance. We're 2 weeks into training camp? Bo Nix was asked whether he'd be okay after so long. Like he was a starter at Oregon, started at Auburn, started in high school. He's been a starter forever. Whether he'd be okay with not winning this job for week 1.
Well, I don't know if I have a choice on that one, if I accept it or not. If I want to stick around, I better accept it. But I also don't necessarily want to become complacent and say, you know what, it's my rookie year. I'm okay with sitting back and hanging out and learning. I have full confidence and trust in these coaches and this team. They'll play me when I'm ready, and I'm going to do my best to get ready.
I'll tell you one thing about Bo Nix that goes in his favor. Dude is polished. There's not one time, and looking back at the last 2 young quarterbacks that I've talked about on these airwaves over the years in Denver, Paxton Lynch and Drew Lock, Bo Nix knows the answer to everything. Every answer out of his mouth is the exact right answer. This dude is polished. He's confident. You listen to him, he sounds like he's beyond his years. And all jokes aside about how old Bo Nix actually is, he is still, in the grand scheme of things, quite young. But given that he has been the face of 2 different college football programs, he's learned. Always giving you the right answer. And that's part of it. And you could say, oh, that's a silly thing. Who cares? Like, come on. You remember Drew Lock. You remember the amount of people that he turned off with some of his answers and some of his antics and things like that. The dancing, sitting down, dancing, and like Drew Lock did a lot of those things that made people get out on it. Maybe even Vic Fangio, to be honest. But every time I hear Bo Nix speak, I'm like, of course Sean Payton would take this guy. Now it's just a matter of it actually working out on the field. 719-247-1313. Do you think it's Bo Nix week 1, no matter what? Be curious to get the pulse of Broncos country on that. Coming up next, while Joel Embiid took away from Team USA against Serbia, Jason Tatum did not take anything away, and he didn't add anything. Why did Jason Tatum get a DNP on the world's biggest stage? Team USA in both women's and men's basketball cruised to opening victories. The women today routed Japan. Japan held in there for a little while, but eventually they were overwhelmed by Team USA, and I'll get to that subject because Don Staley had some interesting comments when it comes to the player who isn't a part of Team USA. But to the men, all in all, pretty smooth first game, but yet, and you could say it's a indication of where we're at as a society, that we tend to look at the negative instead of the positive, but maybe that's the case. I'm telling you, Embiid and Tatum were the two biggest, and Durant. I shouldn't say that. KD absolutely, with the way he played, was as big of a story as anything from that game. This dude had not played in how long? Because you even go back to when the Suns were bounced from the playoffs. He didn't play in any of the lead-up games. And I think many players on Team USA benefited from playing those games. Durant just comes in off the bench, cold, hasn't played basketball in how many months, and he doesn't miss a shot in the first half. Didn't miss a shot in the first half. It's crazy. And when he misses first shot, he still goes 8 of 9 from the field. He missed his first shot, late third quarter, something like that. He was brilliant. And you know what? Even though he was overshadowed, so was LeBron. LeBron was great. In any other game where Kevin Durant is not unconscious from the field, we'd be talking about LeBron didn't miss a shot in the first half. And I didn't even know. They mentioned it at halftime. I was like, oh, wait, what? He didn't miss a shot either? So in any other, and when's the last time we had a game that had LeBron in it and he was shooting that well and playing that well, and he could not be further from the number one story throughout that game? He wasn't. He's like fifth on the list. But he was really good too. But Durant was amazing. And he has supplanted Carmelo Anthony as the best player in Team USA history. He leads them in everything. And I expect him to be in the starting lineup next time out for Team USA. And it does remind you, we were talking a lot leading up to the Olympics about, oh gosh, this is a veritable who's who of Nuggets antagonists over the last few years, right? You have two Phoenix Suns, you have LeBron, you have AD, you have Joel Embiid, and now you have Anthony Edwards. Like everybody that you have clowned on, everybody that has hurt the Denver Nuggets, as the Nuggets have beaten, they're all together on the same team. Steph Curry went sleepy night on them a couple of years ago. Everybody on that team has beef with the Denver Nuggets, or more accurately, Denver Nuggets fans have reason to have beef with all of them. But I think this is what's awesome about this format in this stage, is that all this stuff that turns you off of LeBron and Kevin Durant, all those things that makes you, not like them or criticize them, it goes away. It goes away on this stage. LeBron's not lobbying Grant Hill to bring in Trae Young. He's not getting the Team USA to include Bronny on the roster. Kevin Durant's not asking to be traded from Team USA to France. And all you're left with is how good the player is. And you hate that. You feel, and look, LeBron and KD bring a lot of it on themselves. I'm not trying to say that, hey, all that negative stuff that you said about LeBron and KD, it's unwarranted and you shouldn't feel that way. You absolutely should. Kevin Durant and LeBron have been coach killers. They've left franchises high and dry with their wandering eye. They've both asserted themselves into the front office to make moves that are detrimental to their team's success. Like, all of that is warranted, but all of that goes away when they're wearing the red, white, and blue, and you're just left with, my God, KD is a dead-eye shooter. My God, LeBron at 40, coming up on 40. I don't want to be 40 before I have to be. I'm not going to do that to LeBron. He's 39, and he's playing that way on an Olympic stage. I'm not entering this into the GOAT debate. I'm sure plenty of people will, and we may broach the subject. Nothing LeBron James can do on this stage is going to change my mind that he's the GOAT over Michael Jordan. But I'll tell you this. Michael Jordan would not be playing at this level in the Olympics. He wouldn't be. And that's a testament to LeBron James and how much he works and the $1 million a year he spends on his body and all that kind of stuff. But it's so great because you can just appreciate how great these players are without all the added baggage that they have with them when they're playing in the NBA. Now, maybe it doesn't sway you. Maybe you still don't love KD. Maybe you dislike LeBron. But I think you can appreciate how good they are at what they do on this stage as opposed to the one they play on in Phoenix and Los Angeles. It's a tough group to crack through. Right? You got LeBron playing at a high level. You got KD, unbelievable the other day. Anthony Edwards has been arguably their best player. And then you have Joel Embiid, who is detracting from the team. So he's the one guy that sticks out, and you're like, this guy's not helping. And then you have the curious case of Jason Tatum. 0 minutes. 0. That is the most embarrassing DNP CD that you could possibly get as a basketball player. I don't care about the fact that he at least made the team. You got to play. Right? You got to play. And for a player with the caliber or the accomplishment of Jason Tatum, like, it's one thing, Tyrese Halliburton, no one's saying, some people were poking fun at him because he didn't play, but, like, Tyrese Halliburton, for many basketball fans, just showed up this year. Right? Jason Tatum's been around for a while. And people in NBA circles have continued to push him as one of the elite players. And here he is on a team with the best American talent that the U.S. can find, and Joel Embiid. He can't get a minute. Here's Steve Kerr explaining himself.
He's a total pro. He's, first team All-NBA 3 years in a row. I felt like an idiot not playing him. But 40-minute game, you can't play more than 10. You really can't. And, so I think he's an amazing guy, great player, and handled it beautifully. And, he'll be back out there next game.
And you better believe he'll be out there next game. I do think that Jason Tatum's role with Team USA is pretty telling. Okay, because I don't think that Jason Tatum is where many people want him to be. I don't. But the dude deserves more than 0 minutes. And I look at, okay, so you can only play 10 guys. First of all, Joel Embiid. Okay, that's the first one I'm going to. I don't care what position Jason Tatum plays. I want more Jason Tatum minutes than I want Joel Embiid minutes, which is 0. Swap places. That's the ideal scenario here. But the more realistic thing, why isn't he getting Derek White's minutes? You know, when a team is selected as opposed to earns their way there, right? So many of these Olympians, they went through this multiple year process of qualifications and nationals and all this kind of stuff. They don't pick and choose, right? They earn their road to the Olympics every step of the way. But when it's soccer, when it's basketball, they're chosen. And when a team is chosen, you wonder if there are influences outside of what you would normally expect playing a part here. Okay, you know the whole Jaylen Brown versus Grant Hill stuff that continues on and what that was all about. The politics of playing Joel Embiid, even though he has been a net negative for Team USA. You know why he's in the starting lineup, and you understand why Steve Kerr is going to give Steph and LeBron and KD everything they want. And that's not even really about basketball. Right? I can't help but wonder if there was some intentionality to it. I know the popular conspiracy theory is Steve Kerr is doing his best to destroy the Boston Celtics from within, right? Boston, defending champions, doesn't look like they're going to slow down anytime soon. So I'm going to cause a rift, and I'm going to pit Jaylen Brown against his own teammate. And then I'm going to pit Jason Tatum against the same teammate. I don't think that's the case. But hey, when Jason Tatum, who is multiple years All-NBA, who helped his team win a title, I don't think there are any necessarily bad ideas because it was quite stunning that he got 0 minutes. Are they trying to make legitimize Derek White? Is that what's going on here? That they have this whole rift going on and Jaylen Brown accusing them of leaving him off the team because he was, it's not just that he wasn't a Nike athlete. He put Nike on blast and called into question their morality. It's not just that he wears a different sneaker. I wonder if they were trying to legitimize the selection of Derek White. Because there is no universe, as much as I love Derek White, and I love the fact that Dwayne Wade, in between him doing that stupid pronoun bit that he needs to be done with moving forward, in between all of those, he brought up, sometimes you got to go through Colorado Springs. Eagle brought it up, not Noah, his son, brought it up. I loved all the shout outs that Colorado Springs got, and I love the story that is Derek White. But there is no universe in which Derek White is a better basketball player than Jason Tatum. There is no world where Derek White is more deserving of minutes than Jason Tatum. And simply inserting Kevin Durant into the lineup is not enough to take Jason Tatum from 15, 20 minutes to 0. So while I'd love to get up here and say, oh, well, told you Jason Tatum's not the guy that you think he is, right? He's not an upper echelon star. And I do think you see, going back to my earlier point about LeBron and KD and realizing just how good they are, Jason Tatum's down the list quite a bit. He's further down the list than people in Boston or other people in NBA circles would like him to believe. But he's a terrific basketball player. I'm more of a fan of Jaylen Brown's game. I'd rather have Jaylen Brown than Jason Tatum on my team. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't like Jason Tatum on my team. You have Drew Holiday. That's enough. Okay, you take Derek White. If something were to happen to Drew Holiday, you need more defense, whatever. You have Derek White there. I can see in some way, even though I don't believe that's why Derek White got chosen, I can understand why you'd want another guy with that kind of skill set on the team. But that's just in case. That's just in case. Throw out the best lineups. Steve Kerr seems like he has all these other reasons for putting players in the roles that they're put in. Just put the best damn players on the basketball court and let it go. I understand you're not going to play 5 centers or 5 point guards. Like, there's a little bit of balance going into all of this. But you can't tell me that the U.S. would have been any worse off yesterday if they would have played Jason Tatum the 16 minutes that Derek White got. I'm sorry, there's just no way. And actions have consequences. And the consequences are not felt by Steve Kerr. They're from Jason Tatum. Now he's getting clowned on social media for being a towel boy. He doesn't deserve that. He just won an NBA title. He is one of the best players, and he's better than Derek White. Steve Kerr is supposed to be one of the most brilliant basketball minds that we have, and he can't figure out a way to carve out a few minutes for Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum doesn't bring anything to the table. I get it. He's not as good as some of these other players. He's probably not one of the 5 best players on Team USA. But he's one of the 10. Unequivocally, he's one of the 10. I just wish that I could look at what Steve Kerr's doing and go, he's trying to put the best team out on the floor every given moment. And I just, with Joel Embiid and not playing Jason Tatum and playing Derek White over him and putting the aging stars all in the starting lineup, no matter what, moving forward, I don't think he's always making the best basketball choices. So now, whose minutes? I swear, if he just takes Derek White's minutes, then I'll know that I am 100% right on why Derek White played yesterday. Don't get me wrong, love that Derek White played, but if you're telling me you can only play 10 and there's no way to play more, no way. Given that game was out of reach in the fourth quarter, no way to play more than 10. I would much rather see 16 minutes of Jason Tatum than 16 minutes of Derek White. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Team USA's win. Got to get into some other countries, notably Canada, as we are finding out so much about all of these NBA stars that we think one thing about and now maybe start to think another. So that's coming up in a little bit. Take a break. An interesting dilemma has been faced by a coworker of mine, and I would like to pose it to you and see if you can help him. That's next. even said I would get more input from fine folks like you. So, as you know, the Broncos are bringing back the old D logo with the color scheme and everything, and the uniforms look absolutely spectacular. And the Broncos know it. And that's why they're, kind of hoarding some of this. They have an event apparently this week where you could go and buy your Broncos throwback jersey, which they will use at least week 4 against the Vegas Raiders. And you can go and buy it. And it's a whole event, and it's to capitalize on the excitement because everybody's super excited about these new uniforms, as they should be, by the way. I don't know about the new uniforms, but the throwback uniforms, spectacular. So if you're a Broncos fan, I got to imagine you'd very much like one of these. The problem is, as you are well aware, the state of the Broncos is a little bit in flux. Right? And whenever you have a situation like that, you go in and buy these jerseys, unless you have American Express. Do they still do that jersey insurance thing? There's a bit of risk that you're taking on. And we all know this. I got Ricky. I don't know if I do have it anymore, but I remember I had a Ricky Williams Saints jersey. The number of Chiefs jerseys that I have, that those guys lasted very little. Tamarick Vanover had that jersey. Like, you could go into your closet if you keep them and see so many jerseys that were only good for a little while. They weren't forever jerseys. And no jersey really is forever. But you can just do the best you can with the information that you have. Here are the choices, because you can't get out of the box or anything and go, I'm going to put no customizables. No, I want, so-and-so or whatever. Like, these are your choices. If you were to choose, would you go with, right now, would you go with Bo Nix, Javonte Williams, Marvin Mims, Pat Surtain, or Cortland Sutton? Those are your choices. Now, you could go throwback. 3 throwback options: Elway, Terrell Davis, Randy Gradishar. But to me, those are, in many ways, those are the easy choices, right? You can always go a throwback. I'm talking about right now, if you want to buy one of these Bronco throwbacks that they will wear this year, and you want to pick a player that is currently on this team to give you the best chance that you can wear that for years to come and not have to put duct tape over it or hide it in the closet, would it be Nix, Javonte Williams, Marvin Mims, Pat Surtain, or Cortland Sutton? Now, I would say that Bo Nix, you could probably get a Bo Nix jersey and feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty good about it. So maybe that's the easy answer. But still, did you buy a Paxton Lynch jersey? Did you buy a Drew Lock jersey? Especially with this team, even if you think Sean Payton got it right, you have so much scar tissue from quarterbacks of yesteryear that I don't know that it would be a no-brainer that Bo Nix would be the best choice out of these. I think Cortland Sutton is probably the worst choice of them all. he'd be one of the best choices for this year, but one of the worst choices moving forward, because I don't see, and I think the Broncos organization made it very clear that there is no guarantee that Courtland Sutton's even going to be on this team a year from now. So maybe right now you're like, well, Marvin Mims hasn't shown anything. Surtain would obviously be above Courtland Sutton, but it'd be one of the best choices to go with Courtland Sutton. But I think that's going to age poorly. So if I had to rank them in order of most confident I am that they will last a while in Denver, at number 5, I would put Courtland Sutton. At number 4, I would put Javonte Williams. At number 3, I would put Pat Surtain. With his contract situation, I talked about this last week. Right now, he has more value to the Broncos as a trade chip than he does a player. And they got to see what Bo Nix has. I think there's a good chance that Pat Surtain remains a Bronco, but until that deal is signed, sealed, and delivered, you're going to be sweating it out, especially if the Broncos aren't good this year. And then Marvin Mims would be number 2. And then Bo Nix would be 1. But the problem with Marvin Mims is, are you super excited about Marvin Mims? Because jerseys are also a bit of a fashion statement. Yes? Rocking the Mims jersey, you think you're going to get a lot of high fives at Empower Field because you're wearing a Mims jersey? So while I would have a lot of confidence that Marvin Mims is going to be a part of the Broncos for a while, I don't know if I was in your shoes that Marvin Mims would be my go-to. Gotta see some things first. So I do think that Bo Nix is probably the best blend of, it's one that you want to wear because you're excited, right? You're excited about Bo Nix. But also there's a better chance than some of these other players that he's going to be around for a little while. And then if you want to go off the beaten path a little bit and like everyone's going to have a Bo Nix jersey, then it becomes super complicated. But I was talking to him about this today. I said, you know, if you could choose anybody, I mean, just open it up to anybody. I really think that like Quinn Meinerz, right? Job security, certainly. But also, you know, there's the belly thing that people like. So you get a few high fives like, yeah, the belly. But then also, this offensive line is really becoming the identity of the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton, with as much as he is pouring into this offensive line, he is banking on them being their best position group and being one of the best in the NFL. Like, if I were a Lions fan and I wore jerseys, because I don't wear jerseys anymore, but if I was a Lions fan, you know who I'd want more than anybody else? I want Penei Sewell. That's what I want. Think about that offensive line. They just re-up Taylor Decker. That's the best part about the Lions. And then all this stuff about, you know, checking in as eligible and everything. There would be that conversation starter, right? Especially if you went Decker. I think as this season goes on, there's always the Bo Nix stuff, right? It consumes everything. But even with that, I really think that this offensive line is going to be a source of pride for the Denver Broncos and will be kind of the identity. They're rebuilding this team, but they're starting in the trenches. And Quinn Meinerz, homegrown, Division III, Wisconsin Whitewater. If I had to choose from that list, I'd probably just go Bo Nix. Like, I can't take it. If I want to get swept up in the excitement, but at the same time, I can't go with one of these other guys that might be gone in the next 2 years. I can't do that. But if you opened up to anybody, I think I'd go Quinn Meinerz. Give me your thoughts. 719-247-1313. I think the best out of all of them has to be Randy Granishar. Right? I mean, they brought these throwbacks because of him. You know, this year is about honoring that 77 team. That'd be the best one if we threw in the throwbacks. I don't love that list. I don't. I see a lot of guys on that list that might not be a Denver Bronco for long. It's not my investment, though. 719-247-1313. The 3 stories that are driving the show coming up after we have an Olympic update. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on a Monday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Pleasure to have you, whether you're listening on air, online, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app. A lively conversation so far. Looking forward to it being even livelier in this third hour. 719 24/7-1313 is the text and the phone line for your convenience. Let us start this hour with the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's spread out the no, actually, let's do it this way. Here's story number one.
It's incredible, but not surprising given what I've seen from Kevin in the past. I've said it before. I think he's the most skilled basketball player I've ever seen. The game just comes so easily for him, and a long layoff like that doesn't seem to bother him. And he was brilliant tonight. Obviously, just shifted the game as soon as he got on the floor.
That is the head coach of Team USA, Steve Kerr, as the U.S. breezes by Nikola Jokic and Serbia to their first win. He, of course, was talking about Kevin Durant, who was the best positive story from the victory, coming off the bench in his first game with Team USA and just being unbelievable. Did not miss a shot in the first half, ended up 8 of 9 from the field. And he reminded you why he's the greatest scorer in the history of USA basketball. Because he could just, when he's not trying to deal with other guys who want to shoot the ball, like he does in Phoenix, he could just go crazy. And he did. And he was fantastic. And LeBron was terrific. LeBron didn't miss a shot in the first half. Nobody was talking about that because KD was just breathtaking. You know that he was talking about Kevin Durant because he said the name Kevin. But even if the word Kevin, the name Kevin wasn't in there, you would not be fooled into thinking that that was Joel Embiid that he was talking about. Because while there were so many players that contributed in major ways to the U.S.'s first win, continuing a running theme through the lead up to the Olympics and now game one of the Olympics, the Team USA is better without Joel Embiid than with him. And that's not me stating an opinion. I mean, I'd have that opinion just watching him. But I have numbers. I have statistics to back up my claim. Team USA, with Joel Embiid on the floor, outscored by 8 points. Without him, they were plus 34. And we got another matchup between Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, and I continue to come away from basically all these matchups wondering why it is that so many people take it upon themselves to bend over backwards and tie themselves into knots trying to put Joel Embiid on the same level as Nikola Jokic when, quite frankly, you look silly if you try to do it. This is the ultimate team stage. This is about us over me. This is the rules lead to a more team-oriented game of basketball. And Joel Embiid can't hack it. He can't. Two things that Joel Embiid does: attacks the rim and gets foul calls. Referees aren't giving him the foul calls. He has to clear out of the lane so LeBron can drive in. He's not a good fit. He's not a good fit, and he's detracting from this team. Absolutely. Could you imagine if Joel Embiid didn't play in this game? Like, the U.S. would have boat raced Serbia from the jump. Joel Embiid, when he can't be a free throw merchant or attack the rim, he's not Joel Embiid. Those are the two key things. He must go to the rim and he must get foul calls, cheap foul calls. And juxtapose him with Nikola Jokic that is keeping a bunch of no-name guys for Serbia in the game. Nikola Jokic on the floor, Serbia dead even with Team USA. Without him, 29-3, Serbia got outscored. That's the game right there. That's the game. Nikola Jokic is a winning player. Joel Embiid is not. Nikola Jokic makes his teammates better. Joel Embiid does not. Nikola Jokic can find ways to contribute, even if he's not the main scoring option. Joel Embiid is completely unable to. Everyone wants to clown on Jason Tatum because he got 0 minutes, which is not his fault. That's Steve Kerr's fault. The guy everyone should be looking at is Joel Embiid and wondering why in the world is this guy on this team? They're better without him. But for the Joel Embiid truthers, it's nice to be able to see him get absolutely cooked by Nikola Jokic every time down the floor and look up after the game is over and realize that even in an off game for Nikola Jokic, he was still far superior to Joel Embiid. It's about the team and it's about winning at the Olympic level. Two things that Joel Embiid is not about. And it could not be more stark, the difference between these two guys. Could not be. You want to try and carve out some minutes for Jason Tatum? Start Anthony Davis at the 5, bring in Bam Adebayo off the bench, and give Jason Tatum Joel Embiid's minutes. It could not be a worse look for Joel Embiid and those who claim that, oh, if he's just healthy, Joel Embiid all day over Nikola Jokic. That's nonsense. You're trying to make an argument where there is none. It's fine. Right? We've gone through long periods of time in NBA history where the number one player in the league was obvious. Okay? The case is that now. I don't know how anyone could take Joel Embiid over Nikola Jokic unless the rule is you have to flop wildly to try and get foul calls. Now, Nikola Jokic is good at that, but the results bear out that Joel Embiid has that down to a science. Anything other than that, give me Nikola Jokic every day of the week. And you have no leg to stand on if you argue otherwise, if you watch the Serbia-US game. Here's story number 2. Back-to-back Broncos stories for story number 2.
Well, I don't know if I have a choice on that one, if I accept it or not. If I want to stick around, I better accept it. But I also don't necessarily want to become complacent and say, you know what, it's my rookie year. I'm okay with sitting back and hanging out and learning. I have full confidence and trust in these coaches and this team. They'll play me when I'm ready, and I'm going to do my best to get ready.
That is Broncos quarterback Bo Nix meeting with the assembled media at Dove Valley. Bo can sleep well at night, and I think the calmness in his voice tells you that he has some inkling about what I've been saying for the last couple of weeks. He will get this job. He will. And the only thing stopping him is something quite catastrophic. But it's not to say that he is being handed this job for no reason. We're just, we're giving it to him just because. I actually don't think that's the case. And I think you're going to see it, and people have already seen it up at Dove Valley. Now, Bo Nix doesn't have the experience of either of the two quarterbacks. He doesn't have the raw talent of a Zach Wilson. But he blends but you could look at it the other way and say he's more talented than Stidham and probably a little bit more polished than Zach Wilson. And I think ultimately that wins the day for him. This is not just, hey, we're giving Bo Nix the job, no matter what. But everything about who Bo Nix is and everything that the coaching staff is going to do between now and the season opener will have him put over the top to be the Broncos starting quarterback. So I don't think he needs to worry about how he would react. Because if he's not the starting quarterback week one, then something has gone wrong. He'll be ready. Sean Payne will make sure of it. To think that Bo Nix may not even be a Denver Bronco if John Elway would have made a different decision back in 2018. And that is the subject of story number 3, this audio courtesy of the Pardon My Take podcast on Barstool.
Did you not get Josh Allen? I feel like he is exactly your type.
I know he is. And
The one
believe me,
that got
last year I
away.
played with him, and I'm wondering how long is it going to take him to realize that I passed on him and took Bradley and Chubb instead?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it took him 2.5 holes to bring it up and I loved him, right?
Yeah.
But it just,
He
didn't
was
work
your
out,
type.
and
That's
he
the
was
one
my
guy.
type,
Yeah.
and you're right. That was probably my biggest mistake of my GM days,
Well-
was not taking Josh.
So John Elway, after all these years, finally fesses up and says, I whiffed on that one. But I do think he's also not being completely honest when he says he loves Josh Allen. He didn't love Josh Allen. He didn't go to see him at his pro day. Okay, he didn't love Josh Allen. Because that's him saying, well, I knew. Because if he liked him, then why didn't he take him? Right? If you love him and he doesn't have an explanation for that. The explanation is that he didn't love Josh Allen. He didn't. And he was even, I think, turned off by the whole idea of drafting a quarterback in 2018 because of what happened with Paxton Lynch. But that's not the way to go. I know the Arizona Cardinals haven't won big, but what'd they do? They drafted Josh Rosen. It was a disaster, and they immediately moved on. Green Bay doesn't even wait for their quarterback to be done before they bring in another one. I think John Elway was so done with drafting a quarterback after the Paxton Lynch debacle that Josh Allen was not in serious consideration. Because if he loved him, why didn't you draft him? You had Shaq Barrett. Why didn't you draft him? It's good that he admits it, but they got burned by Paxton Lynch, so they went out and got Case Keenum, and John Elway didn't go to watch Josh Allen throw at his pro day. But I will, in his defense, say that it's not the worst decision he's ever made, passing on Josh Allen. I think drafting a quarterback and missing and not being able to make up for it, a la the Arizona Cardinals, a la the Chicago Bears, I think that's a worse mistake. Because all of these leagues are full of, we almost had that guy. We could have gotten that guy. Oh, but we didn't. Right? How many teams passed on Patrick Mahomes? Anybody could have had him. That's not what kills you as much as getting the wrong guy. And I just think it completely poisoned John Elway against young quarterbacks. We got Case Keenum, and the rest is history. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, Team USA women's basketball was made light work of Japan, but of course, the player that's not there garnered a bit more of the headlines. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate back to school with Switchbacks FC this Saturday night at Widener Field. Be there at 6 p.m. as a very limited amount of fans will get a special edition Switchbacks hat provided by Phil Long Dealerships. Then after the Switchbacks take on Phoenix Rising, experience a fun back-to-school fireworks display. It all goes down this Saturday, 6 p.m. at Widener Field. Get your tickets now at switchbacksfc.com. So the men start with a pretty easy victory over Serbia. The women, kind of much the same today as they were going against Japan. Japan was hanging in there, giving them everything that they could, but ultimately the U.S. just overwhelmed them, and they end up coasting to a 102-76 win. Now, there was a funny sign in the crowd. It was a Japanese fan who was saying that you need Caitlin Clark to beat us. I mean, that was never going to end well. They weren't going to lose to Japan, but A+ on the trolling, knowing that even though you are in Japan, you did your homework and you know what we're talking about surrounding this team. So I thought it was a very creative troll job, even though it ended in not disaster, but it didn't end well. They didn't need Caitlin Clark to win, and that's never been the argument. It's never been the argument that they need Caitlin Clark to win. The argument is they need Caitlin Clark to make people pay attention. Don Staley was asked by Mike Tirico over the weekend, you know, what, how does she feel about their decision, because she is on the selection committee. So here's Don Staley on Caitlin Clark. See that, and I like Don Staley a lot. I do, but that last part, you're saying that makes all the difference. 2 months in the WNBA goes from Caitlin Clark is unequivocally not one of the 12 best players to she would be, and she's playing head and shoulders over many members of Team USA. And you're not projecting a little bit. You can't project a little bit like, oh, well, because I saw some things with Caitlin Clark very early in the WNBA season, especially the passing. That has always been there. The whole story outside of the ugliness with Angel Reese and Kennedy Carter and all that kind of stuff was that her teammates were being assist killers because she was serving it up on a silver platter. Like, that passing was there from the minute she stepped onto the WNBA court. It's the shot that has taken a while. Sorry, I just don't buy it. The reporting that was out there, I think, unfortunately, is accurate. That there was a sentiment that they didn't want Caitlin Clark on the team because she would detract, and rabid Caitlin Clark fans would be coming for Cheryl Reeves in Team USA if she didn't play. Remember, that was, okay, well, she's not going to get a lot of minutes, and you're going to be mad at us, so we don't want to do it. Let's see here. Everyone on Team USA played at least 6 minutes. most players played over 10. Alyssa Thomas, 18 minutes. Brittany Griner, 16. Oh, forget that. They're not guards. Sabrina Ionescu, who was fantastic, by the way, today off the bench, 11 points, 5 assists, a steal, 4 of 8 shooting. Could you imagine a backcourt with Sabrina and Caitlin Clark? That would be phenomenal. I'll tell you this right now. I'd take a backcourt of Sabrina Ionescu and Caitlin Clark over Diana Taurasi and Chelsea Gray right now. Diana Taurasi, 15 minutes, 1 of 2 shooting, 2 points. Chelsea Gray, 21 minutes, 1 of 5 shooting, 2 points. Did have 13 assists. Team USA has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guards. 7 guards. Nobody's making the case that Caitlin Clark should be on the team over Asia Wilson or Brittany Griner or Brianna Stewart. That many guards all got minutes, all got double-digit minutes except for one who got 6. Be that upset about it? Would you be? Because I wouldn't be. I get it. It's like what we're talking about with the Team USA men with Jason Tatum and stuff. Like, you understand your place, and Caitlin Clark, even though I think she and Sabrina in the backcourt would be phenomenal, I understand that Caitlin Clark wouldn't start for this team, that Caitlin Clark will be one of the last players on the bench, but Cheryl Reeve apparently does a much better job of playing everyone than Steve Kerr does. So let's just take that everybody gets in. I understand there's a pecking order, right? International experience and fit and all that kind of stuff. 6 minutes, 10 minutes of Caitlin Clark would have been enough to serve the purpose that many people wanted Caitlin Clark to serve, being over there. I don't know how you didn't. I just don't think that the best player argument really holds up. I just really don't, even when they selected this team. If you want to make it about, we've been growing this team for years and it's about that, okay. Kind of like Caitlin Clark can't just step in, like she has to go to the Team USA camp. You don't want her to detract from other players. Like, I just don't believe it was the selection process was as much of a meritocracy as people want it to be. I don't, for the record, I don't think that Team USA on the men's side was completely a meritocracy. Now looking at it and watching the game, it's like the very thing that people argued against. And I didn't want to put Caitlin Clark on the team because she would attract attention, right? She would gain ratings. That's not a reason that I would want to do that. But the people who made that case, I think feel a little vindicated after game one. Be honest, did you know that the U.S. women's basketball team was playing today? I bet you knew when the men were playing. So I don't necessarily agree with their reasoning either for putting her on the team. I don't want anybody to just be handed a spot just because you garner television rating. But that may be the only way that Team USA gets ratings. Yeah, I like Don Staley. I don't think that that last part really comes out in the wash because you saw that passing from Caitlin Clark immediately. Immediately. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. I asked for your help. Well, my friend, a coworker asked for your help on the Broncos throwback jersey. If you were investing, it doesn't even have to be the throwback, but my guess is the throwback's more expensive, so it's even more important that you get as much use out of it and you get the best jersey you could possibly get. Get back into that question. Many of you have thoughts on it, and I want to get to those as well. Coming up next here on Extra Sports 1300. Just heard Dan Patrick's Above the Noise commentary where he's talking about the quarterbacks. We talked about Tua on Friday, and then Jordan Love signed up. It just, the alternative is worse. Like, just pay these guys. Okay, now I think if we're really going who deserves more money, you can't make the argument that Jordan Love deserves more money because of his accomplishment. For sure. But what you've seen from Jordan Love, he'll have a little bit more to give at the quarterback position than Tua. Tua is very much take the snap, couple steps back, get rid of it. And he's extremely accurate. But Jordan Love, I feel like, can make a few more things happen, or has the potential to do that. And that's what the Packers are doing, right? They're buying future. The future of Jordan Love is far more than they're buying the past. And if you can reward somebody or invest in somebody's future, is better than just throwing money at them because of what they used to be. Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. Sorry, got Russell Westbrook on the brain because I'm going to talk about it here in a second. Just pay these guys, Should we really have sticker shock anymore? Their highest pay, whatever. Yeah, people thought that Patrick Mahomes' contract would break the NFL. Break it. There's no way the Kansas City Chiefs could possibly function as an organization paying Patrick Mahomes that much. And now he's essentially paid what Tua's paid. He's like 19th in cap hit. Like, enough with the pearl clutching and sticker shock. Do you have your guy? That's what should be argued. And we can have that discussion when it comes to Jordan Love. Guy's got 8 games. Right? Shouldn't worry about how much money these guys are getting paid. If you feel like Tua or Dak or Jordan Love should not get an extension, that's the far more interesting conversation. And do you think so-and-so should be the highest paid? Or they gave that much money? It's a yes or a no. Right? Is he your guy? If the answer is yes, then you go down the road where you got to figure out, you got to give the agent something that he can hold up and say, so-and-so is the highest paid, whatever. And it's either average annual value, total money, guaranteed money, whatever it is. You give the agent their little bit. You try and work in like Miami did with Tua, where you say, really, your money's going to be paid out over the first 2 or 3 years. And if you're not progressing, if we don't progress as a franchise, we can use that time to maybe explore the draft a little bit. Right? I actually think Miami's deal is quite good. You look at Green Bay, and it's like they're not paying anybody anything. All their receivers are 2 years into the league. So there are different circumstances that lead to, well, we could do more on this. We can't do as much on this, and all those things that they do in those contracts. To me, it's very simple. Do you want to see 3 to 5 more years of Joe Burrow? Do you want 5 more years of Joe Burrow in Cincinnati? Yes. Okay. Well, then he's going to get paid a ton of money. Just deal with it. Do you want to see Trevor Lawrence for the next 5 years? Yeah, you may be a little bit down on him, but you certainly, if you're Jacksonville, you would like to see it for a little while longer. Tua, if you're a Miami fan, do you want Tua to continue to be the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins? This is the price you have to pay. You just have to. And the sooner we can get away from the sticker shock and so, like Patrick Mahomes should be able to renegotiate his contract every single year. Like, was it Nick Saban? Nick Saban had this, right? Nick Saban, wasn't he the one that always got a raise? Alabama every year would have to give him a raise to make him the highest pay. Like, Patrick Mahomes should have built that into his deal. He actually got fleeced by Kansas City because all these years later, it's like Tua's getting paid and Lawrence is getting paid and Jordan Love's getting paid. He should have that thing where automatically every year Patrick Mahomes gets to renegotiate and become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Everybody outside of Mahomes should not be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. There's only one answer. I'm done with the sticker shock. Oh my gosh, you're giving this guy 100 and whatever. Is he the guy or is he not? Or not even is he the guy? Because with Miami, again, I think they're hedging their bets a little bit. But just, do you want to see more of this guy? Dallas might be in a position where they don't want to see any more of Dak Prescott. Miami wants to see more of Tua. I want to see more of Tua in Miami. I want to see more Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. I want to see more Jordan Love in Green Bay. There's a price. This is the price. Why I had the Freudian slip with Russell Westbrook. One other Olympic take from the weekend. Did you watch Canada and Greece? If you are someone who thinks that, you know what could be good, and I don't remember who said this. I know I pointed it out on the show as ridiculous at the time, and it's even more ridiculous now. Do not, Michael Malone, play Russell Westbrook and Jamal Murray together. Do not. At no point, no. Put Russell Westbrook. It's either Westbrook or Murray, not both. One or the other. Don't even stagger Jamal Murray with the second unit. Because if that game with Canada and Greece is any indication, Westbrook in a lineup with Jamal Murray would not go well for Jamal Murray. That guy needs the ball in his hands. He needs to play the two-man game with Nikola Jokic. He was playing with a pretty ball-dominant guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Pretty ball-dominant. Called his own number a lie. He was feeling it. He was fantastic in that game for Canada. I'm not saying that SGA should have passed up shots. But this is a point guard that likes to call his own number. That's all what Russell Westbrook does. That's all he does. Jamal Murray wouldn't touch the ball if Russell Westbrook was on the floor. The whole premise of signing Russell Westbrook is just let him go out with these unproven young guys and just do whatever the heck he wants. So hopefully they can have some bench production when Nikola Jokic is out of the game. That was a rough start for Jamal Murray. He is isolated. He's not. He looks like he's moving just for the sake of moving, and it's not moving to have any chance of getting the basketball back in his hands. Like, Shai is Steve Nash compared to Russell Westbrook. There was a time coming out of Kentucky. That was the time. Coming out of Kentucky, I thought that Jamal Murray as a 2. Right? That's what I thought. Off ball. Jamal Murray. I am no longer in that camp. And I moved away fairly soon after the draft. He's not your traditional point guard, but the Nuggets don't have a traditional center. It works. You throw in Russell Westbrook and play Jamal Murray off the ball, you're going to forget that Jamal Murray is even on the floor. Because that's what happened with Canada. It was the SGA show. And anytime Westbrook is on the floor, it's the Westbrook show. Which is fine, again, when you're playing with Julian Strother and Dario Saric, and it's not okay when the Nuggets' second best player is on the court with you. So it was a rough start for Jamal Murray. We'll see if SGA gets him a little bit more involved. He made a comment that the announcers, Dwayne Wade and Noah Eagle, brought up. I drive, he shoots. Okay, well, half of that was missing against Greece. It was Shea drives, Shea shoots. And look, it worked. Canada won. SGA was phenomenal. It just, no, was never a good idea, and it certainly is not a good idea to play Russell Westbrook with Jamal Murray. So now that that's all buttoned up and Russell Westbrook is legitimately a Nugget now, it's all done. He sent out a message on social media. Great. And I'm glad that the Nuggets have him. I am. Just don't let him get in the way of the best thing that the Nuggets have going. And putting Jamal in like Michael Porter's role. I want the ball in Jamal Murray's hands with Nikola Jokic. Let Westbrook figure out with Dario Saric what to do. Let's see. Steve G reacting to Don Staley says that answer was totally a company woman's statement. Clark would have lifted the whole team with her passing alone. I really don't like company lapdogs. I just, and Don, I don't want to say Don Staley is just, falling in line. She is a little bit of an independent thinker, but there are forces when it comes to Team USA in basketball. And you see this in soccer. We don't have the depth of talent to really go, oh, this guy's not there, or this girl's not there. Oh my God. Like, we just don't have it. We have a pretty good group, but there's not many on the outside looking in that we go, man, that's a snub. We don't have that. So when you have an embarrassment of riches, unfortunately, there are some other, and when you're the highest profile Olympic team there is, or one of them, politics plays into it. As unfortunate as that is, it exists in every walk of life. And I just think it does with Team USA, and it's disappointing. Clark could have carved out 10 minutes and we would all been fine. Back to my coworker's conundrum. Apparently, many Broncos fans are being offered the chance to go up to Dove Valley and purchase their throwback Broncos unis, but they have limited choices. The current choices are Bo Nix, Javonte Williams, Marvin Mims, Pat Surtain, and Cortland Sutton. And my coworker, wanting to make a sound investment, asked me what I would go with. And I think the fairly easy answer is Bo Nix. But if you didn't want to, everyone's doing the Bo Nix. I think the guy that I have the most confidence is going to be a Denver Bronco for the next few years is Marvin Mims. Sutton's probably the worst choice for that. Javonte Williams, not going to be around. Surtain, I would think, would be around, but there are some factors like, do the Broncos need to flip him to get more draft capital to move up to draft a quarterback or something like that? Once he signs the extension, then you're good. And I think you should have a fair amount of confidence that Surtain's going to be around. I'm just saying it's not 100% that Pat Surtain is going to be a Bronco. So what would you choose? Brett says, if I had to buy a Bronco jersey this year that will be sustainable, it would be number 4 because that is usually their punter. It's a good joke, but if I can ruin the joke, they've actually had quite a bit of turnover at the punting position, but I get your point. They just hand number 4 to the next guy. Albert says, never have I bought a Bronco jersey, but if you force my hand from the current roster, it's got to be Garrett Bowles, the vet, the anchor that guy has overcome, shown up, and shut up. But that goes to my Quinn Miners thing. Garrett Bowles is 70-30 he stays, 60-40 he stays. It's a little bit up in the air, but I like where your mind is going because I do think that this offensive line is going to be talked about. And a lot of people will like this offensive line and kind of make it the identity of their team. I bring it up all the time, and so does Sean Payton. He loves the Detroit Lions. He loves what they are doing. What are they doing? Investing in the offensive line. Their offensive line, even though we talk about Jared Goff, their offensive line is very much their identity, and some of the most popular Lions players are on the offensive line, and I think the Broncos can have that. I like that. Ryan says, I got burned on a Kadri jersey, wore it for 1 month, and he signed with Calgary. That said, I'm taking Surtain's jersey. Yeah, buying a Nazem Kadri jersey, getting swept up in the Stanley Cup run, the too many men on the ice, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I will say, with all due respect, it was a distinct possibility that Nazem Kadri would not be an Av moving forward. But I do remember that there was some discussion that maybe he'd stay. But I understand the emotion behind it. And actually, I'll say this, even though that there was a decent chance that Kadri wasn't going to be on the Avs, after that, I will say that your sweater actually holds up. Because in many ways, rocking a Nazem Kadri sweater, brings up the nostalgia of the Avalanche playoff run. Like, he embodied that playoff run. I know Cale Makar was the Conn Smythe and Nathan McKinnon's always talked about. But Nazem Kadri, with what happened in St. Louis and what happened in Tampa, I actually think it holds up. I would wear it with pride if I were you. Right? I don't think that's as bad of an investment as you think. So on that happy note, I want to tell you about QC Kinetics. If arthritic joint pain is keeping you from doing the things you love, there are exciting new cellular therapies that can get you lasting relief. QC Kinetics is helping patients like you every day, not just across the country, but also here in our own backyard. These are cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative cellular treatments for your achy joints. Call for a free consultation right now, 719-347-1988, 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics, 719-347-1988. It's been my pleasure to serve you today. I'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Here's Westwood One Summer Games update.